So we are so excited to be bringing you a special podcast where we're going to be talking about one of our favorite movies that we're able to see this week. It is Field of Dreams, and this is going to be so much fun to talk about. And I'm here with my friend Stanford.
Hi.
Want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Stanford Clark. I live in Utah, fellow movie fan with Rachel, and I'm a big baseball fan. And so when Rachel and I were talking about this, we thought it might be fun to talk about or to collab with a baseball movie. But I do some writing. I've got my own blog, and then I also contribute to the Animation Fascination blog, which is at animationfascination.net.
Yeah, great blogs. And yeah, it's interesting because Field of Dreams is one of those movies that I think transcends genres. It's not really a sports movie. It's not really an inspirational movie. It's not really a family movie. Like it is all those things and
all
more.
the above. Yeah. That's what I was reminded to rewatching it, because it'd been a while since I had seen it, Rachel, and it was so fun to rewatch it because it's a fun sports movie. And I think so many people think, oh, it's just a baseball movie, but really it's a fantasy movie.
Yeah.
And then a great family movie.
Yeah, it's defined as a fantasy drama sports film. And that's correct.
Yes, it is it.
It's really also, I think you could make a case that it's a faith-based film.
You know, I think I totally agree. Because it is, because even though there's not just like one person that's considered God, but there's like in the film, in the context of the film, but it is it's a very
spiritual film.
It's a spiritual film, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about the spiritual realm out there in the cornfield, right?
Now, had you read the book?
No, I haven't. Okay. Have you?
No, maybe it wasn't you that I was talking to that had mentioned about the book. But yeah, it's based on a book.
Yeah, called Shoeless Joe, right?
Yeah, and it was released in 1989. It's directed by Phil Aidan Robinson, and
he wrote it too. Written and directed.
You're right.
Yeah.
He wrote it. Yeah, that's true. And it stars Kevin Costner, Amy Madigan, James Earl Jones, Ray Liotta, Burt Lancaster. And you have the amazing score by James Horner.
Yes, I know. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about, that score. So good.
Yeah. And so what were your kind of overall sort of response on this rewatch to the film?
Well, I think part of it, as we were just barely talking about, the whole spiritual aspect of it, because, again, I remember it being a sports movie, and I remember getting emotional with the family part, played by Kevin Costner and Amy Madigan. I think it's so interesting to me to looking at this as more of an adult, with more experience, how their relationship really, I think, defines it. Because had there been conflict in their relationship, I think that would, and that could have really messed up the narrative of the film.
Yeah.
So I really liked that part about it. And then also I was just so taken with the performances by James Earl Jones and with Burt Lancaster.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I had forgotten even the Burt Lancaster part. I remember James Earl Jones was in it, but the stuff that Burt Lancaster does is so cool, which I know we can talk about. But so yeah, really, those were two things that really struck me. How about for you?
Yeah, I was really moved by it. I thought that it was a beautiful example of how we change as we get older and how we start to think more about our life and what we would, I love movies about regret and forgiveness and just sort of those themes that it kind of, in a weird way, sort of reminded me of Up in a way, because it's the sort of the same sort of feelings that Carl's going through of just feeling this regret about life. And it's kind of the same thing that the Kevin Costner character is going through, where he's regretting what he did with his father in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets, just like Carl has sort of the chance to kind of redeem himself with Ellie, he has the chance to kind of redeem himself with his father.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really moving, and it's definitely themes that I really respond to. And I thought that It was just so lovingly done, and there's only one part that I think is a little bit heavy-handed, I guess.
Which one?
The brother-in-law.
Yeah,
The
I
brother-in-law is a
know.
little
So
much.
obnoxious, and I felt that way too. It's like, really, is this necessary? But I guess they chose to put some comedy. I'm glad that he finally turns around.
Yeah, he was just a little, sort of the bad principal, the bad, it's just sort of the cheesy bad guy who's coming in to kind
Yes,
of spoil all the
exactly.
fun.
Exactly, and it seemed cliche almost,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That in fact, there's so many things about that movie that I think that one I totally agree with you. And it seems to be there are multiple times where the film could go in that direction, like when he goes to James Earl Jones' house to to try to convince him to come with him.
yeah,
And same thing when they meet up with the Burt Lancaster character who plays Dr. Archibald Graham, who again had kind of a missed opportunity or felt with baseball in his past. I'm sure we'll talk about that, but thought, oh, this is borderline, like this is going to go into really maudlin or really cliche,
yeah,
but then it turns into something really wonderful,
right.
in my yeah
Yeah, it's kind of like a Hallmark movie, but with everything done right.
opinion. Exactly. To say it totally could be a Hallmark movie, but yeah, it kind of takes a direction where it makes it quite ethereal and quite wonderful.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. He hears these voices, and I thought it was interesting. Sort of the first thing that the voices make him think about is getting older
Mm-hmm.
in age. And he says to his wife, he says that he says, my father felt ancient to me. I never forgave him for getting older.
Mm-hmm.
He never did a spontaneous thing in his life.
Yeah.
And I don't know, was that something that you could kind of relate to about what you've, like, I don't know, just on any level, either you getting older or how you thought about your parents, or just any of those kind of things? Like, was that something that felt authentic to you?
Oh, absolutely. It felt very authentic to me. Again, it was very telling of Kevin Costner's character, and the way he was, portrayed his character arc, I think. But definitely for me, I think, and that's one of the reasons why this movie works so well is because it speaks to us as how we relate to our parents, right?
Yeah.
And the relationship that we have with our parents, and how that really evolves over time. As a child, we view them as either ancient or outdated or oppressive or whatever, and then as an adult, when they're gone, all we want to do is to be with them again, and
Yeah.
because we can see it differently. So that clearly was key, and it was wonderful to see and experience that again. In fact, that's the thing I think I get most emotional about. I mean, I love the baseball part, of course, and the fantasy
Mm-hmm.
part, but it's that whole connection with his dad.
Yeah.
And again, I appreciate so much that his wife is supportive of him in that regard too. She's not.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of questions it, but then she figures out and she's on board. And to me, that again, that was just so helpful and comforting.
Mm-hmm.
I just you don't see a lot of that in, I think, films today too.
Yeah.
Just how that relationship works is so combative or confrontive.
That's really true. Like, it's not the typical sort of judgy wife kind of thing. Like,
Right.
What are you doing? Kind of like, she is great. And
Mm-hmm.
in a believable way, though, I felt like she's not, nobody's preachy. Everybody feels authentic.
Yes.
And I think that we can all relate to that feeling of when you realize that, holy cow, my parents aren't perfect. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you're a kid, they're the authority figure. They're the one telling you to stop. They're the one telling you to, and so like you spring on any kind of hypocrisy or any seeming kind of, how can you tell me what to do?
Yes.
when you made this mistake? Oh my gosh, kind of thing. And so you don't treat them like they're human beings, because they kind of aren't. When they're their mom, they're the dad. They're not like a flesh and blood person. And
Mm-hmm.
you do get that point in life when you sort of realize they did their best. They tried,
Yes.
or maybe they didn't do their best, depending on your parents, but
Right.
What are you going to do? And
still they're your parents, and
yeah. Yeah. And what was it that I was just I was watching Moonlight, actually, and that's one of the a great scene in Moonlight where Mahershala Ali's character, talks about his mother and how she was a bad mom, but how he would do anything just to be able to talk to her.
Right, to be able to talk to her.
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really. I thought it was authentic, as you said. Yeah.
And so he takes, and I was surprised how much happens in the first 10, 15 minutes. Like, this movie, I think, would have been way worse if they were to remake it. I guarantee you it would not be under 2 hours, and it would be way worse for it. Like, it just
so true.
If they were to draw this out and make this long, it would be so you'd see sort of the plot holes, and it would just become boring and
roll your eyes like, oh, here it comes.
Like, I guarantee you this movie would be 2.5 hours if it was remade, and it would be way worse for it. And I was just so impressed. Like, within the first 10 minutes, he's already built the field.
I know.
And I was like, wow, I don't remember that.
I don't remember it being so fast. And I was so pleasantly surprised because I couldn't remember at what point he starts building the field. And like, wow, there it was. And it was happening. And I was thrilled. And then all of a sudden, they're talking about the whole Terrence Mann stuff, the James Earl Jones character. And I'm like, oh, wow, we're going here. It's just, it's so nice that it never feels too long. It never feels too long, in my opinion, either. One of its strengths. It's one of its strengths. Well,
and his wife says when he builds the field, she says, that's the first time I've ever seen you smile talking about your father. And, I think that, I'm not married. I've never been married, but I can imagine that, like, and he says to her, I've just created something totally illogical, and that's what I like about it. Mm-hmm. And I think there is something in a relationship that it's like, I don't care if you're happy and this is making you like happy about your father or making you grow.
Right.
Who cares? If it's totally illogical, if you want to, I don't know, as long as you're safe, I guess.
Right.
If you like that, I just thought that was really cool that that's a functioning, strong relationship is not somebody who's like, you have to like everything that I like, or you have to do everything that I like, but and you don't even have to make sense as long as you're happy. Like, that's what I care about, is your happiness is the most important thing to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, that same thing. I don't mean to be a broken record, but their relationship was so well written and so well acted, I thought, between the two of them, and it just made all the difference. Because had she been constantly questioning him, I mean, in a way that it was like negative and tearing down the relationship, it would have been just extra painful, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas when she's on board, and even though it's weird what he's doing and illogical, he's happy, but she gets a sense of it too. I think it's that spiritual thing you're talking about, how she gets the spiritual sense that this is meaningful. They don't understand why, but they're
and I can relate to it because as a spiritual person, I've done illogical things that I felt prompted to do.
Yeah.
And it's only until after that you're like, oh, okay. That's why.
That's why. Yeah, exactly.
So, okay, and then we get the little girl who's she's pretty Hollywood mop top cute little girl. Yeah,
she's a cute little girl. Karen, right?
Yeah.
Is her name, or Karen? Do they call her Karen?
I can't remember.
I can't remember, but she's played by Gabby Hoffman, who I don't know where else we've seen her, but I looked up her name.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen her in other stuff.
Yeah, I think I've seen her in other stuff too.
She comes in, there's a man out there on the lawn.
I love that she can see him, because as our viewers will know, not everybody can see what's happening. They can't see the people come out playing on the field. And I was so happy that she could see it too. Again, I thought another good decision by Phil, by Mr. Robinson, the director and writer,
Yeah. It is kind of, it's sort of like it really speaks to the experience of having faith, you know, that you can have like these amazing spiritual experiences, and the people that aren't sort of open to it don't have that experience.
Yeah,
but then
they can't see it.
two people will be just crying and emotional and having the spiritual experience, and then another person will be stone cold and not have any, you know, any experience.
Yeah.
I knew it. The little girl, she's in Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh, that's why we. Okay. I'm so glad you looked that up. Like,
yeah.
No wonder we know her.
She's still a working actress. It looks like. I'm just looking at her thing. Yeah, good for her. She was in the show Transparent, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's on Amazon.
Yeah, and on Girls, evidently.
Okay,
there you go.
There we go.
But
she's kept working. Good for her. Well, I thought she was cute in it, and in that too. You know, she was singing it, and she was like having the faith of a child.
Yeah.
But also, she's just very kind of nonplussed, if that's the way to say it. But she's like, oh yeah, there's, like you were saying, there's a man out there, and she's not like screaming, or she never gets too.
That's what I was going to talk about, because none of them are. Like, it was so much better. Like, if like, we avoided that scene where, you know, like if you watch like a body swap movie or something like that, and there's like, and sometimes it can be funny, but there's like, oh my gosh, where am I? What am I? You know, or whatever. Whenever there's magic in a movie, you know, there's usually this like really strong, somewhat over the top response. But that's not what happens here. When he goes and meets Shoeless Joe, he's just like, wow, cool. Like, I appreciated that we didn't get that.
Exactly.
I don't know. I liked that it wasn't like, oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah, I do too. Like, the emotions, again, back to being authentic. I think the emotions were authentic, but also subdued.
Yeah.
And that was such a plus, I thought. I mean, the only thing that really gets emotional is like at that school. You know, which is more kind of for humor, that at that school meeting or whatever, where the people are freaking out.
So there's this. That's the next day. There's this, or the next scene. There's this censorship hearing about this author who's written these books. Terrence Mann is his name. And there was some really good writing in this scene, which I think saved it from being a little over the top, but I love
it's one of those that could go over the edge, you know, in a second, but thankfully it doesn't.
Yeah. And she says, you know, well, I lived the 60s, and the other lady's like, well, I did too. And she's like, no, you didn't. You lived 2 50s and a 70s.
I know. That's a good line.
That was really good.
Yeah.
And I thought that she was fabulous in that scene, Amy Madigan. She is so good.
She aced it. She's really good. And yeah, I agree with you. And it was such a great illustration of her character, you know, just that she really was a thoughtful, passionate person, but it just plays into, again, the great relationship that she and her husband have.
Yeah. And that, that the way that she defended, I don't know, it's like she defended the right thing, and, you know, not censoring these books and not burning books, you know, of course, without being kind of sanctimonious or I don't know. I just thought that, like, now it would be so much more preachy.
Yes.
Than it was.
Yes.
Then.
I've thought about that so much too, Rachel, that it would be so much more preachy, so much more contentious. You know, from all sides, and almost like that they couldn't make it today, because you know it's
an interesting question. Like, could they? Because I feel like this movie would be either too much of a faith-based film if they made it today, and, you know, too much about come to Jesus kind of a thing, or it would be to kind of try to completely remove that element and become too secular. I feel like I don't know. Maybe I feel like maybe an old school director like a Steven Spielberg or Robert Zemeckis I could trust to pull it off. But other than that, I don't know.
I know, seriously,
Yeah.
if they could pull off the material. So again, kudos to Mr. Robinson,
Yeah.
our writer and director, because he he
Finds
was
that
able to
balance.
pull it. And it was it's a fine line, and that he really, wow, he was able to do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and especially because that all of a sudden it becomes this road trip movie, and the fact that he's able
I
to kind of
know.
make all of that work is really hard. Like what they're able to pull off is really, really hard.
Yeah, I'd forgotten the road trip part, too, or I had suppressed it. I'm not sure. Again, not that it's
Yeah.
horrible, but I was like, oh yeah, that's right. He and James, Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones go on the road, and like,
Yeah.
wow, it's so weird. Yet again, it moves. Thankfully,
Yeah.
it's part of the plot. They move it. They don't like get too stuck on it, but cool stuff happens.
Yeah.
Which I hope which we'll talk about. But
Yeah,
I,
it is great when he goes. So he goes to find Terrence Mann because he hears this this second kind of this voice, that he has to go the distance, and so he has to go and find Terrence Mann.
and what's the pain quote? Wasn't there like relieve his pain, or what's there, or is that later? Am I mixing Terrence Mann with Archibald Graham?
I can't remember. Um, I can't remember. I didn't write that down. Shoot. But anyway, he goes and I like, he just says, "I swear to God, I am the least crazy person I have ever known."
Isn't that great?
Yeah. And I love when he has he's got trying to fake the shotgun or whatever in his jacket. You're like, yeah, all right.
That's a really funny scene, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good.
Because again, I was like, what are you doing here? This is so crazy. And Terrence Mann has been holed up for a lot of years and kind of suppressing his own, pain.
Yeah,
I'm
I
looking up the
mean,
pain quote because I really think that I think there.
yeah, he basically, because he has researched and tried to he found this article about that Terrence Mann had given this interview about him in baseball, and so he goes out to try to find Terrence Mann, and and he feels like this is a necessary part of finishing this quest, I guess, that
Yeah,
started with the baseball.
right.
And meantime, in the meanwhile, the brother-in-law is putting all kinds of pressure on them because of the mortgage and the field
Yeah,
and
because
everything
of
like
all the
that.
money that they've lost from
The
giving up the farm, that they
Yeah.
stuff that they can sell.
I feel like, I mean, I don't know anything about farming or whatever, but I feel like you wouldn't lose all of that money so fast.
I know. It's just
Like
like
wouldn't it take a
instantly,
crop
yeah.
cycle and stuff like that and have to sell, but oh well, what are you gonna do?
Right. No, that's
Like it's
yeah.
just like a week or something.
I know. So that's one of the things they had to put into the movie, right, to give us some more drama or more conflict. But yeah.
Do you find that quote?
Well, it was ease his pain. Ease his pain.
So
I just can't remember at what point it comes in. If it's talking about, I really think part of it's talking about Terrence Mann.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's what he hears
Does that sound
first.
right?
Yeah, while in the
Ease his pain
field, Ray
first.
hears the voice again, this time urging him to ease his pain.
Yeah. And
Then he attends the meeting, and then he finds the article. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I got that confused.
You're good. And
it
then
isn't
go the distance, right?
Yeah, and then go the distance. So yeah, so he goes to try to help Terrence, and of course Terrence thinks that he's a nut at first. And they have some great back and forth, some great time together, and he finally convinces him to go to this baseball game, and that's when he hears that we go the distance, and that they have to go to Minnesota to find Moonlight Graham, one of these players. And I don't know, like, so all of that is fun, and that's where we meet Doc Graham. And we find out that he was a former baseball player who ended up becoming a doctor after he couldn't play anymore. And he like quietly helped all of these children as a doctor. And we even kind of go back to 1972 where he finds the doc. And anyway, it's sort of, what do you think of those scenes? You said you really loved Burt Lancaster.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think Burt Lancaster is such a great actor, and I thought it was so cool that he was in this movie, and I had forgotten, sadly that Burt Lancaster had a role, and I read too this was one of his final screen appearances.
Interesting.
I meant to do. I wanted to find out what his actual truly last screen appearance was, but this was near the end of his career, his life.
Makes sense.
And yeah, it does. You can tell that he's of his age in the film, but he, again, it's one of those. It's on the borderline of like, oh, this is going to be stupid, or this is going to be special, or go on maudlin. But it just turned out so cool the way they do this, and again, it really starts to feed him more into the fantasy. But we find out that Doc Graham, he had to choose, right, between baseball and medicine, or wasn't that how? Well, no. Or how did you interpret that? Or am I missing that?
So he played one game for the Giants. Yeah,
he played the one game. Yeah,
he never got to actually hit a bat. And then so he never got to really have his baseball dream. And we also know that Terrence Mann also had a dream of baseball. That's what was in the interview.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's, like I said, it's sort of similar to Up in this way that, you have these dreams, just like Ellie and Carl had this dream of going to South America. But, life got in the way.
Yeah.
And he's got sort of the dream of his father. You got the dream of Shoeless Joe that was interrupted. You have the dreams of Terrence and of Doc. So, yeah, and I really did love when he says that he says, where is it? He said that he tells the story about how he treated his father, and he says, I could never respect a man whose hero was a criminal. And talking about how his dad loved Shoeless Joe, and how he, got on the bus and never saw him again.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really moving, and how we sometimes in life judge people for such stupid things that are just so either out of their control or that are just so unimportant in the grand scheme of things. But at that moment, they feel important. But, which baseball player that a person likes, the fact that you would, it's just interesting. And I think we all do that sometimes, it's just like,
yeah, I do too.
How could you buy this car, or how could you support this person, or how could you, whatever it is. And anyway, I thought that was really, really good.
Yes.
Scene.
Totally agree.
So, so then they get this young man, this kind of hitchhiker guy, that they pick up, and they take him to see the game. So you have the young man, you have Terrence, and the brother-in-law, and Kevin Costner, and the wife and the daughter, all there watching this game.
And the young man, his name is Archie Graham. So they're all, James Earl Jones and Kevin Costner look at each other because they've just met.
Right.
Anyway, it's a younger incarnation of Doc Graham.
Right.
Right. And
it's
again,
kind of the reveal. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, again, it's so cool that they just kind of smile and let it be rather than freaking out. And
right.
But you can tell if they're smiling, like, oh my goodness, look who we're with.
Yeah. And the fact that he could finally get his chance to play ball and everything, and it's very exciting and
magical, in the best sense of the word.
Yeah. And so the brother-in-law is the total awful, and he
The
pushes
jerk.
the little girl off of the bleacher, and she's the wind knocked out of her, and that's when Doc has to come back through the game, give up his chance to play anymore as young Doc, and he saves the little girl,
Yeah.
and it he gives up his kind of, I guess you could only play once or something, I don't know, are the
Yeah,
rules.
I don't know the rules either, but again, that's when my waterworks started to. I'm just bawling as this is happening. But yeah, here he is, young Archie gives up his chance to play baseball again to save a life, and it's cool. And then Burt Lancaster walks off again into the through the cornfield, and it's like, wow. So
and
cool.
then the brother-in-law is finally able to see the game.
Right. The brother-in-law finally stops being a jerk, and then that, and I don't know.
He's like, "Don't sell the farm."
Yeah. I wanted to ask you your thoughts on that, Rachel. Do you feel like the brother-in-laws kind of change your heart? Was it too sudden? Did it feel right to you? And
the thing is I think that that it probably is not a change that will last very long. Like, I think it's kind of a to use an example that you and I know, like a Layman and Lemuel kind of a thing, that you see that you see this angel, you see this magical, you see this thing, and you're very humbled and you're faithful, but very quickly you kind of talk yourself out of it, or convince yourself that it was silly or stupid or whatever. Yeah. But I think in that moment, I can kind of buy that he would do that, but I don't think it will last.
Right. Thankfully, it lasted to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I was thinking, don't go back. Don't become mean again. Don't become mean again.
Yeah.
Let us get through the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they could have, I wish that they had figured out a way to kind of write that a little bit better. I don't know. It's tough. Like, you have to create some conflict for the story, but right. I don't know. I just, it was a little much, a little over the top.
Yeah, a little over the top. And again, I was just trying to think, well, what makes it so people can see the players? Is it just they have to have some faith, or they just have to like believe Kevin Costner? I'm joking, but I'm wondering though, what caused them to be able to see, to see the players, or what caused him?
Yeah, that's a good question.
To have his blinders lifted.
Yeah,
the brother-in-law.
I think that it does have something to do about faith, and if you believe in it, then you can see it. But if you don't, and so maybe it is kind of a cop-out that he did see it at that time, because he still didn't really believe just because he'd seen one person come off of the field like that.
Yeah.
But maybe he did. I don't know. That's interesting.
Maybe he did because he saw. Well, Burt Lancaster like appears out of nowhere from his view, because he wouldn't have seen him as young Burt Lancaster, as the young Archie Graham. But then when he becomes Doc Graham, it would be weird, oh wow, where did this doctor come from? That just saved the life of my niece.
Yeah.
But still, it's interesting. Yeah, clearly not our favorite character in the film, the brother-in-law.
No.
No.
But it works. It serves its purpose, I guess.
Yeah.
So then the doc says, or I can't remember if it's Ray Liotta or if the doc, one of them says, do you want him to come with us, looking at Terrence? And let's see here. He basically is like, is that why you did this for me? Is that why, and he says to Ray, I think you better stay here. Stay there. And that's when Terrence walks through the corn. And so he kind of has his sort of moment where he gets to have his dream, his childhood dream or whatever. Was that moving for you?
Actually, it really was, and I I I liked how it was all put together. I really liked how James Earl Jones and what a great performance he gives throughout the film, and that one because it's not like it's like he's going into a new life or a younger version of himself or something really happy, and I thought he played it in a way where he's in a way almost giddy about it, and I thought that was just so interesting because, again, it could have been either all dramatic or something, again, or and heavy, but instead they make it cool. And I mean, you can see from that his character is, he's kind of done with his current life and the way that he's been a recluse, and feeling bitter about things. But
Yeah.
this whole situation brought him back to life, and it's like he's going to go on to now something new. And I don't know if it's necessarily like he's going on to death or going. I mean, that part was a little unclear, but still, it just seemed like a happy progression for him that he wasn't going to have to go back to the city and be unhappy again. Just kind of living
Yeah.
alone in his apartment, but he was going to be do something cool.
Yeah,
How
that
did
he's
you?
going to fulfill his dreams. Like
Yeah.
that's why I kind of saw it as sort of this passing. That his work was done, and
Mm-hmm.
that he could,
Mm-hmm.
he could go he could go
Yeah,
forward,
he could go
and
forward. Yeah.
and yeah, and then because Ray wants to go too. Like he
I
wants
know.
to.
Yeah.
That's why they're like, you're needed here. We need you
Mm-hmm.
here, but we needed somebody uh, who was willing to do what you did, was willing to sacrifice so much, and was willing to listen.
Yeah.
That you were somebody who had that faith, and that like the world especially needs people like that to
Mm-hmm.
stay. And so that was really good. And then you see a player at the, I think at home plate or on the field that that Ray recognizes, and it turns out that it's his father. And uh, and and that was part of the ease his pain
Ease his pain.
kind of
Yeah.
part. And so that is really just moving. Sort of, it reminded me of in Up when uh, he finally reads that inscription in the book written by Ellie of thanks for the great adventure, and he feels this sense of sort of forgiveness, and that he doesn't have to live with that regret anymore. And it's kind of a similar experience here. And he realizes that was the message. Was, if you build it, he will come. That was his father, and it was
right. That it's his father. It's not
yeah,
necessarily Shoeless Joe Jackson. That it's his father.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That.
really, it'll give me the feels. It really does.
It was just, as I had already told you, it was a ball fest for me.
Yeah.
I just it's pathetic there, just ugly crying. It's so moving.
Yeah.
And again, it's just it's handled so well, and I love that line, where he's saying, "Well, is this heaven?" It's like, no, it's Iowa.
Yeah.
Although that was that his dad, or was that Shoeless Joe Jackson that says that? But
I can't remember.
I might be misquoting it, but still, that interaction that he has with his dad, because it's like his dad. I mean, because clearly he's encountering his dad before, in the timeline before he was even born, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's seeing him as a young man, and it's almost like they get to reestablish their relationship, and in so many ways, or that again, Kevin Costner gets to kind of right a wrong. He gets to change his perspective and see his dad as he really was, rather than through the filters of his youth, where he was not seeing things clearly. And oh, it's so great.
I mean,
Yeah.
him and his dad end up playing catch.
Oh,
Like,
I know. It's just so great. And the James Horner score is
yeah.
going, and it's filmed so perfectly. It's a perfect moment. So good.
Yeah, I mean, the James Horner score, he has such a great gift
Hmm.
of making things gentle
Hmm.
and yet impactful, and
Yes.
really not telling you how to feel in scenes, which I really
Hmm.
appreciate.
I
You know,
appreciate that
certain
too.
composers, they are just so heavy-handed in I mean, all hail John Williams so much, but in the Lincoln score, that was the one that I did not care for. I felt like in that score, he was telling you what to think a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, and there are lots of examples, of that where it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people loved the score of Jackie. It got nominated for an Oscar. So I didn't care for it because I felt like it was also very like, this is the sad part. Boom. This is and this
Right.
is just so gentle and it's so beautiful.
It
And
is. It's beautiful, and again, just not heavy-handed from
yeah,
anybody.
yeah,
From the actors, from the direction,
yeah,
and then yeah, it's just really well said about the music. It's just so beautiful, and it adds to the feeling, and you can experience your own emotion, and it's crying.
yeah.
It makes everybody cry. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's so well paced, it's so well written, it's so well acted, it has such a beautiful message about family
Hmm.
and about getting older and about forgiving people in your life
Hmm.
and letting people and not just like forgiving people, but like understanding people's weaknesses and their pains. You're easing their pains. You're understanding
Hmm.
kind of who they are, and I don't know. So I just love it. It's interesting because I shared with you the Siskel and Ebert review, and Siskel didn't get it. He
Yeah,
didn't
I
get
thought the
it.
same thing. Like Ebert got it and Siskel didn't,
Yeah.
and that was, yeah, very telling. I was so glad you shared that with me, because Roger Ebert was going on and on, kind of like Rachel and I have been doing.
Yeah.
That where this movie's spiritual. It really gets it. It really, again, it's a great baseball movie, but it's also this wonderful fantasy movie that where kind of wrongs of the past are made right
Yeah.
again, and it's just so sasatisfying. And yeah, Gene Siskel comes in, and
He's like,
Bull Durham is a better baseball movie, and he's going on
you're
and on.
like, Bull Durham is like, I just think this. I mean, I've never seen Bull Durham, but like, this is this is just not just a baseball movie, and you have to kind of look at it
Yeah,
as a unique film.
it is.
It's a
It really
spiritual
is.
movie. That's
It
what it
is.
is.
It really is. And Bull Durham might be focused more on the technicalities. I've seen Bull Durham more on the day-to-day life of a baseball player, and just how that and how that goes down, or at least and then a particular caricature of this player. but
Yeah.
but uh this really plays into the whole mythic element of baseball, in addition to this wonderful fantasy story, too, and this wonderful family story, that
Yeah.
because there's something just special about baseball,
Yeah.
and it's somewhat hard to describe, but
Yeah, I was going to ask you, why do you think that baseball is particularly cinematic? I mean, there have been a couple of good football movies, Rudy,
hmm.
for instance, of course. And there's been a couple of good basketball movies with Hoosiers
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But I don't know, it just seems like there's something especially cinematic about
yeah,
baseball.
there's something about the just the way the game is played, and the layout of the field,
Hmm.
and the battle between the pitcher and the batter. There's that sort of setup. I think also too, baseball is just so focused on its own history, because everything about it is tracking statistics, and it's all about looking to the past, and trying to improve, and as you're in the present, and moving into the future, and everybody's focused
Hmm.
on history in it. And I think that plays a big part. I mean, other sports too. Clearly, there's history with everything. There's something about the history of baseball, and I'm with you. And maybe I can't say I completely understand it or can articulate it, but I just don't know of any other sport. Whereas you're looking both at the past, present, and future all at once, and it's just.
Yeah, I think there's a sort of a leisurely pace to baseball.
Yes, good call.
That kind of it. Yeah, that kind of makes it particularly cinematic. And I think that like it's harder to fake basketball. It's harder to because like for just the physique of the players alone, it makes it a little hard. But in football, you don't really see the characters. You don't see the players' faces when they play. You don't, as much. And I don't know. There's just something that's it's not quite as, it's not just, it's easy to understand baseball. Baseball, it's just you hit the ball or you don't hit the ball. You catch the ball or you don't.
Right, you don't catch the ball. And you're right. You're seeing their faces.
Yeah.
And you can see their reaction to things where, as these other sports, basketball is either too fast moving or it's going on so crazy. And football, even hockey too. I mean, it's just hard. It's hard to see. And I think in baseball too. I mean, even though clearly football's an American thing too, at least with American football, but baseball's so American.
Yeah.
For and there's just something combination of spiritual and kind of patriotic about it, which I think pulls at the heartstrings too.
Yeah, and obviously for this story, that's the only. I mean, I guess you could make a soccer field or something, but like that wouldn't be. But for the most part, like this is the only one that could work. Like it's the only thing you can make in a field. Like it'd have to be in baseball.
Yeah.
But it really does work, and you also of course have the history of the. Of Shoeless Joe and the other sort of players and all that stuff kind of comes into play here.
Yeah.
And so it is,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rachel. About Shoeless Joe, that's another thing that I thought was so interesting about this film is that it brings in some actual history and then ties in a lot of fictional stuff around it, which I thought was a fun way to write it. So, the Shoeless Joe thing was truly a scandal. It was in 1919. And he and his team, it was the Chicago White Sox, where they won the World Series, they played in the World Series, and they were accused of fixing the game, and they all got convicted and got kicked out of the banned from baseball. But regardless, I thought that was so interesting that they, that the writer, the screenwriter, and the director pulled a real story back into this whole fictional. thing. I like that. I thought that was fun. What did you think about it?
Oh, I did too. I mean, I don't know a whole bunch about that, about all of that, but yeah, no, I agree. I thought that it was neat to kind of have this magical realism involved with some of these sort of real life characters, that real life people who and sort of work that in a really loving, kind way. Sort of, this is Shoeless Joe's redemption a little bit, this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So I maybe Pete Rose is waiting for his his Field of Dreams movie.
Exactly. Pete Rose. Well, another thing that I had read, and again, I wish I had the source, so I hope I'm not misquoting it, but it was an interview with the director, with this Phil Alden Robinson, and he was saying that the character of Terrence Mann, the James Earl Jones character, he was also toying with the idea of having him be an actual author that had that had died, and using bringing in that as a fantasy, and then he decided to go in the direction of creating a fictional author that still seemed very real, but. And I thought that was a good choice, but that might have been fun too. He probably could have gotten away with it, in this film, in this fantasy film. But
so if you had to give it a 1 to 10, what would you give Field of Dreams?
Oh, probably a 9 or 9.5.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just completely perfect, for some of the reasons we've been talking about, the brother-in-law and some of the stuff. But wow, it's close. It's just so good.
But yeah.
What would you give
I
it?
would also give it a 9. I
Hmm.
really do love it. And
Yeah,
it was really just warmed your heart to watch. I loved watching this movie, and I loved all the performances, and I loved the message of realizing people's pains and people's and forgiving them, and also just listening to those voices. Listening to who do you think was the voice? Do you think it was was it was it himself? Was it Joe? Was it his dad? Uh,
yeah, that's a really good question. I don't have an
was it
answer.
God?
Well, yeah, I ultimately wonder if it was God, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I thought, and maybe they're trying to make us think that it was Shoeless Joe Jackson,
yeah.
but
There's a case to be made for it, I think.
yeah, and that Shoeless Joe knew that it was a combination of that it would be great for him, but that also this man needed to be reconciled with his father,
Yeah.
and but
I don't know, just like I love the message of just sort of being open to the spiritual, being open to the things in life that you can't explain. And it's interesting because I loved the movie Your Name, and a couple of the people that haven't been as into it were like, well, why would he try to find this
yeah,
this city that why would he make these choices? Why would he do that? And I was like, you're
you're
missing the
missing the point.
you're missing the spirituality to this. You're missing that there's something deeper here that they're trying to figure out, that they're trying to understand. And so I love movies that I love the fact that he says, this is the first illogical thing I've ever done in my life. And he says that with a smile, because I
Mhm.
think that that's an important thing about being human, is that we should we should be spiritual people. We should be, at least I am certainly much happier in my life when I am a spiritual being, when I am somebody who is thinking beyond just what I understand, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to people could say I might describe it as following the spirit. Other people might call it intuition. Other people might call it different things. But I don't want everything to have to make sense or be for my own sort of profit, in some kind of ledger,
Yeah.
that this is the right. So sometimes things on paper aren't maybe the best decision, but I feel that I need to do it.
Mhm.
I feel that I need to quit this job. I feel that I need to start this. I feel that I need to meet this person. And that's the kind of person that I want to be, you know,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And with Kevin Costner's character, it's so interesting too because I kept thinking that he was the first time I watched it as well. I was at that part. This one I do remember, like, oh, this was all about kind of redeeming the Chicago White Sox from 1919, and his having his father come in really took me by surprise, and
Yeah.
but really that's what it was really all about. I think again it was between Ray reconciling, Ray the character reconciling with his dad,
Yeah.
and I'm with you that the whole, you know, being more spiritually minded and it just took him places where even his own logic, his logic wouldn't take him there. And I think he was surprised too. I don't think that he was even expecting to see his dad, because
No.
he talked about the regret, but it wasn't like, oh, I wish I could make this better. It's just like, oh, this is just, I regret this. And
Yeah.
that was such a, a wonderful and a meaningful surprise. It was really, really,
I mean,
really
he was
great.
willing to do something that was completely illogical. That he had no sense of this is what's going to happen, or
Yeah.
this is where I'm going to go. He just was willing to
Hmm.
follow the spirit, follow his gut, however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
He followed the voice. He heard the voice. He followed the voice, and that made all the difference to all these people.
Yeah. And again, so much about faith because he didn't know what was going to happen. He didn't know where this was going to end, and he was really just I think walking by faith, taking one step at a time, or kind of dealing with one message at a time, whether it's
Yeah.
if you build it, they will come,
Go
ease
the
is pain or
distance.
go the distance. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. What do you see kind of happening in their world after the movie's over? You see the cars
You
coming
see
for
all the
the
cars coming in, and so you just hope that at least for a while, and people come. He's able to recoup his money,
yeah.
uh, that people can see this, and that's a good question because I kind of my hope is that it wouldn't like turn it. He wouldn't like build a big mega stadium,
No,
for
I
the
know.
for all the people to come see this, but that he's able to recoup his money, feel reconnected, or feel like some wrongs of the past have been righted, and then he's able to move on with his future. Maybe he continues farming or something, or
Yeah.
who knows. What do you see?
Yeah, I don't know. I
It's
can't
a good
imagine that
question.
the yeah, I would think that that these voices and these things wouldn't allow him to get too off track.
Yeah,
You know what I
right.
mean? Like I can
Mhm.
imagine after a while them being like, "Okay, buddy."
Tear it down.
Yeah.
Replant the corn.
Yeah. But I think that I don't know, maybe he'd like start a little minor league team or something like that.
Right, like
And
he's able. Mhm. Yeah, that's a fun thing. He can still use the field, right? It becomes more
yeah.
of a community thing. The community rallies around it, and the
Maybe
the
all
base.
those horrible people at the meeting all of a sudden.
Right, they're like, oh, we love this baseball field.
And then maybe his wife could become a Terrence Mann scholar or something like
Yes,
that.
exactly. She's gonna teach Terrence Mann at the community college or
Yeah.
whatever, and be like, carry on. And
So,
yeah,
well, this was a really fun movie to watch. I really enjoyed it, and
yeah, me too.
it it's I have to laugh though with this movie because it is one that you kind of like we said, you have to kind of go with or you don't go with. And on How I Met Your Mother, they do have a recurring joke that that this is Robin's least favorite movie.
Yes,
It's just like, and
that's so funny.
yeah, and Ted and like Barney are like,
I know
that's really
they just their reaction
yeah.
to that.
And they're like going over there like, and Barney's like, can we talk about something else? He's like getting out crying
He's
and
all
everything.
teary-eyed. I know.
and
So great.
what's Lily's like, I'm sure he's not mad at you about some movie. And then you see them the next scene, they're like, how could she not like that movie? How could she not like Field of Dreams? So it is true.
It's true.
But I really do. I really do love it. So, so where can people find you?
All right. Well, as I mentioned, I write for Animation Fascination. So it's animationfascination.net. Also on my blog, which is stanfordclark.com, or I'm on Twitter at stanfordclark.
Cool. Well, and if you can put in the comment section, what other sort of classic movies would you guys like us to talk about? Because we had a lot of fun with this one, and so just give us some ideas of what else would be fun. And so thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel. This has just been wonderful. Thanks so much.
Try to get to see Diary of a Wimpy Kid this weekend sometime, so that will be fun. And and then
somebody has to do it, Rachel.
Yeah.
You're taking one for the team. Speaking of.
And then next week, I'm really excited. We will be reviewing Doctor Who on Tuesday, like we've been doing, and also we will be reviewing the new version of Dirty Dancing, me and my friend Amber. So
are you gonna watch that?
Yeah,
it's on
watch
ABC.
It'll be really bad, but we're gonna watch it. So that will be fun, and then
Rachel.
Also, yeah, and then on next Saturday, my friend Richard and I are doing his picks, her picks, our series, and we are talking Stardust and and Time Bandits. So that'll be a lot of fun. So some things to come up to look forward to in the next week. So thanks so much, and we will talk to you soon.